We've all absorbed the relentless drumbeat of advice. If you're chasing muscle growth, the path demands an unyielding feast. Pile on the roasts and ribs, reel in the catches from the deep, chug those thick, powdery potions laced with promises. For what feels like an eternity, sardines have basked in the spotlight, enshrined on that shimmering scroll of elite edibles sworn to sculpt and sustain. But indulge me for a beat. Consider this riddle. If those compact cans crammed with silver-scaled wonders were the ultimate decree, why does the tide of muscle still recede for so many as the decades unfold? Why do we cross paths with men and women navigating their 40s, 50s, 60s, their one steady class faltering like weathered sails, their steps dragging in a hesitant crawl, their once robust limbs fading into fragile outlines? All this amid tables groaning under loads of lavish fare. The unvarnished fact about sarcopenia, that sly, relentless erosion of muscular bulk through the passage of time, defies reduction to a mere ledger of lacking proteins. Far from it. It's a labyrinthine tangle of metabolic bewilderment, undercurrents of inflammation, and a poignant estrangement. An estrangement from the primal pulses, the innate cadences that long ago ignited our forms into effortless bloom. Your very being converses with you in the softest of susurrations, from dawn's first light to twilight's hush. But do you pause to heed? The grim tally reveals that multitudes don't surrender to the grip of ailment alone. They simply dissolve into oblivion through sheer inattention, through inattention to those veiled harbingers, the creeping veil of exhaustion, the subtle slippage of prowess, the ebb and flow of disposition's tides, the fogging haze of recollection, each a muted proclamation that the pillars beneath you are yielding imperceptibly at first. Here and now, we'll venture into the art of forging muscle via nature's unhurried grace, with vigilance and a thread of ethereal woven in. We'll trace the contours of reclaiming ground from Sarcopenia's shadow and unveil one staple so often eclipsed, modest in its mantle, elemental in its form, that it eclipses the sardine's gleam in its capacity to knit the body whole from the innermost chambers outward. For authentic vitality emerges not from the frenzy of accumulation, but from the quiet illumination of insight. Let's wander that path in unison. The mere invocation of muscle summons a gallery of grandeur in our thoughts. Titans of the iron realm hoisting burdens that defy gravity, forms hewn like marble under relentless light, explosions of prowess on sweat-slicked arenas. Yet, peel back to essence, muscle shuns the allure of the aesthetic. It throbs at the heart of continuance. Muscle defies the lurid display. Muscle embodies the essence of endurance. It's the unobtrusive surge that elevates you from repose, gathers a cherished soul into an embrace, urges you across the threshold to the heart of your haven, or orchestrates a languid, life-affirming inhalations of repose. It's the pliant, perpetual engine humming beneath your every instant of awareness. Your muscles reign as the paramount metabolic bastion within your frame. They eclipse simple sheaves of sinew that tense and release. They manifest as crucibles of vigor and unyielding fortitude. The essences you draw across your threshold aren't scripted solely to swell the void within. They're ordained to revive the labyrinthine works of your fibrous forge. Each dwelling in that fibrous realm functions as a miniature citadel of creation, kindling stores into blaze, birthing propulsion, dispatching imperatives across the vast network of your being. When those citadels proliferate and pulse with purpose, your inner alchemy dances in full flame. When they contract and falter, the grand orchestration lurches into languor. Enervation envelopes you, perception blurs into mist, and tempests of turmoil ignite from within. The widespread lore attributes muscle's departure to the inexorable creep of chronology, but that's a veil over the verity. Muscle departs when the crucial communiques cease, the invocations that summon it to vigilance. Prolonged inertia, ceaseless foraging, protracted idleness, or a tenure steeped in perpetual agitation, and insulin's insurrection all conspire to unravel it thread by thread. Behold muscle as your intimate vault of vitality. In every intentional motion, judicious intermission, and harmonious sustenance, you inscribe credits to the ledger. Yet, forsake the call to engage, indulge beyond measure, or nurture an eternal ember of discord, and your etching debits until the coffers echo with vacancy. Muscle constitutes the majestic repository of your existence's continuity. It's the sanctum where the architects of Amino's repose, awaiting epochs of restoration. Amid affliction's grasp, the aftermath of incision, or deliberate epics of abstinence, your essence summons from this wellspring to mend the frayed, and rally the wardens of your ramparts. When that wellspring runs parched, restitution drags in chains. Sentinels stumble. Vital vaults endure undue duress. It's not the accumulation of seasons that heralds our end. It's the dissolution of the very warp and weft that upholds us. Muscle. Through the lens of empirical gaze, muscles assume a dual mantle as glandular arbiters, liberating couriers and envoys termed myokines. These peregrines navigate your crimson highways, commanding cognition to crystalline acuity, directing the refinery of saccharides to seamless stewardship, and fortifying the heart's indomitable cadence. Flourishing muscles proclaim edicts of easement, staunching the body's covert conflagrations. But as bulk dissipates, those conflagrations surge unchecked, insulin hardens into defiance, and surpluses settle in sanctuaries unbidden. Hence, when I implore a voyager to safeguard their muscle, it's no paean to pavilion triumphs. It's an invocation to cradle their primordial essence. No mandate for emulating the arena's colossi from the threshold. Commence in modesty. Venture this essay. Elevate from your perch tenfold consecutively, extremities unbound. Should it exact a toll, incline to the murmur. Your form extends a plea for alliance. That enfeeblement resides not solely in your nether limbs. It's an emissary from your alchemical core. The frame dissembles never. It murmurs until the proclamation must thunder. Conceive of muscle as your conveyance's vital nucleus. In rhythmic invocation, the vital unguent's course unhindered, the quintessence endures charged, the apparatus gleams immaculate, but abandon it to torpor across moons untold. The unguents congeal into sludge, the quintessence gutters to silence, and though the facade gleams pristine, the summons to surge falls unanswered. In kindred fashion, your muscles thirst for communion. Tender, unwavering engagement that sustains a concealed mechanism's murmur. And bear in mind, muscle transcends mere transit. It's the medium by which your spirit communes with the tangible realm. Each class conferred, each banquet conjured with intent, each deliberate footfall, all beseech its silent service. Nurturing your form shuns ephemeral conceit. It's a liturgy of appreciation. It's a vow into grand continuum. I venerate this shrine you consign to my stewardship. Thus, attune your senses to your form symphony. Embrace its contours. Revere its decrees. Prowess calibrates not by the mass mobilized, but by the profundity of immersion in the now. Each tautening, each elongation, each resonant inhalation declares a continuum of being yet unbound within your bounds. Cherish that continuum. Sustain it with devotion. For muscle emblematizes no transient bloom of vernal days. It's a reflector of your communion with the eternal weave. Our dominion has distilled the alchemy of sustenance to arid arithmetic, allotments of protein, quanta of combustion, fractions of lipid. Discourses on muscle orbit inexorably one lodestar, protein. The refrain resounds in every corner. Escalate protein to erect the edifice. Impute debility to Durst's dominion. And the masses? They cascade toward reservoirs of shakes, cascades of crystals, expanses of quarry, flotillas of fin, ingots of expedience, ampoules of assurance. They assimilate abundances, yet perceive no ascension. Whence the chasm. Muscle's proliferation pivots less on the deluge devoured, and more on your inner dominion's dominion to deploy it. Your form constitutes a conclave of cunning. It innately orchestrates assembly, amelioration, and resurgence, yet it petitions precise precincts to proceed. Envision cascading the supremest scaffolds upon a foundation forsaken, devoid of artisans, devoid of parchments, devoid of implements, and the monument slumbers supine. Protein proffers a quarry, indeed, but the artisans, your accelerators and arbiters, exert solely amid equilibrated environs, insulin enthroned eternally, discord flickering in the shadows, assimilation ailing, then proteins torn transpires to transience. The frame dissipates it into ether. I admonish my pilgrims recurrently, impose not vitality's ingress, permit its procession, and that procession inaugurates in sculpting the bastion within. Perpetual perusals or vespertine vines elevate insulin's aegis. Insulin's sovereignty summons sequestration. Adiposity amasses, sinew slumbers. Thus, the chronology of Congress rivals its composition in consequence. I summon sojourners to confine their Congress. Perhaps 8 revolutions of the dial, 16 for reclamation's repose. This elemental observance of circumscribed Congress refines insulin's acuity, abates inner infernos, and channels protein toward restitution over attention. Assimilation transcends the ingress at the portal. It's a reverberation across your realm entire. In composure, currents favor the crucible, accelerators effuse. Quintessence quests anchorage. But amid melee, fingers flitting over facets, precipitance twixt convocations, or altercation amid the assembly, your conduits convulse the crusade's clarion. The frame fortifies for foray, not fruition. Torrents divert from forge affray, and paragons of provision traverse half-harnessed. Thus, the modality of your muster, leisurely, laudatory, luminous, commands parity with its marrow. It's akin to channeling ambrosia apex into a furnace fouled. Pinnacles pour prevails not if conflagration chokes. Your form is that conflagration. Aspiration resides not in escalation but in expurgation. Cadence is reclamation, seamless surge. Protein presides paramount, verily, yet its provenance is provenance. Entwine it with filaments for tempered transit, with salubrious salves to sustain arbiters. Quaff aqueous purity, eschewing saccharine sirens, to facilitate the refinery's right. Afford your assimilations avenue the expanse to exert. Monuments manifest, not in mayhem's mound. They materialize in masonry methodical, nucleus by nucleus, juncture by judicious junction, shore by sibling steadfast. In vitality vernacular, equilibrium enshrines sagacity's summit. We navigate an epic of extravagance, victual's vastness, erudition's efflux, sensation squall. Yet our forms famish for equipoise. We tender tribute for thriving in augmentation's arena. But flourishing flourishes oft in excision's elegance. Forage with fissures. Forage with focus. Inhale antecedent to appetite. Sanction sojourns twixt satiety. Attuned assimilation accords fortitude as benediction. Voracious or vexed vines vend vindication's vice. Protein in consonance curative. Protein in discord deadweight. Contemplate next the citadel of sinew. Inquire beyond ample amassed. Interrogate assimilation attuned. Repose rendered. Realm relinquished for reclamation's right. Your form's finesse eclipses any canister's covenant. It petitions not profusion, but piety. Bestow that, and each particle partakes in vitality's vanguard. Conceal within your corpuscle's choir a sentinel subdued, scarce saluted in the symposium of sinew and sustenance. Endless orations orbit proteins, polysaccharides, porrages. Scant sonnets serenade the unseen scintilla that summons each filament's flare, each pulsation's poise, each accelerator's awakening. That scintilla? Magnesium, a monolith so monolithic, its moratorium quells continuance in scant spans. Beholding pilgrims plaintive of pallor, spasms, somnolent strife, nettled nerves, or nebulous unease, I extend one inquiry. Magnesium's moiety in your morrow? Visages vacillate in veiled astonishment. It's an unplumbed profundity. Yet magnesium marshals 300 tides of transmutation biochemical. It ignites accelerators birthing blaze from banquet. It knits the codex's clefts. It modulates throb, torrent, telegraph thread. But its veiled vice royalty, oft obscured, sinew serenade. Each sinew summons, to class chalice, conquer crest, or curtain cilium, involve an intricate interchange twixt kin, calcium's convocation, magnesium's mediation. Calcium compels the class. Magnesium ministers the melt. A ballet of bind and buoyancy, exertion and exhalation. Magnesium's paucity perturbs the pas de deux. Tension tenaciously tarries. Tangles torment. Toil transmutes to travail. Multitudes misattribute this tautness to tenacity's twilight or temporality's toll. Nay, its entreaty for equilibrium, whence the ubiquity of unmaking. Existence's etchings elucidate. Terrains ravaged by reapers' realm render reaps bereft of bedrock. Paling progenitors plenitude. Elixirs ebony, essences ethereal, enticements effulgent, all eroded expeditiously. Perpetual perturbation, epics under gulps it gluttonously. Each sentinel spasm, each spectre summons, each somnolence's shadow siphon swift. As cascading cascade into cavernous crevice, profuse pour percolates unless providence pursued. Unmaking unveils not an uproar. It unfurls in undercurrents. Napes noose, notions nomadry, somnolence a stutter or dawn's dregs. Cores quiver, cilium's convulsion, while that lodestone's languor no nectar neutralizes. These are susurrations from your form. I recall a seeker in his 60s who sought refuge from the nocturnal torment of leg spasms that twisted through his nights like uninvited specters. For seasons untold, he had chased relief through an arsenal of elixirs and prescriptions, casting lines into the void of remedies without harvest. Upon unraveling the threads of his daily tapestry, we uncovered a landscape dominated by the hollow echoes of fabricated feasts, meals forged in factories rather than fields, and a ritual of 3 steaming draughts of coffee each dawn, a brew that sapped more than it sustained. We wove in verdant sentinels from the earth's quiet corners, broad leaves of spinach and kale unfurling like emerald banners, the humble spheres of pumpkin seeds cradling their hidden bounty, and a whisper-soft infusion of magnesium to bridge the chasm. In a mere fortnight, those midnight marauders retreated into silence, their grip relinquished without fanfare. Yet a deeper dawn broke upon him. He confided, with eyes alight, that a profound serenity had settled, not merely in his limbs, but in the very chambers of his thoughts. Clarity had returned like a long-lost companion, and a quiet centering anchored his spirit amid the day's drift, such as the enchantment of magnesium. It doesn't merely unbind the sinews from their knots. It extends its grace to the restless wanderings of the mind, drawing all into a gentle hush. Envision protein as a sturdy clay that molds the architecture of your form, each granular foundation stone in the grand edifice. Then magnesium emerges as the unseen mortar, the binding force that seals every seam, ensuring the whole stands unyielding against the winds of wear. Deprived of it, the pillars lean and the vaults vault no more, crumbling into disarray. Endowed with its presence, every element finds its true alignment, each bond fortified, the structure rising not in grandeur, but in graceful integrity. It seeks no spotlight, demands no fortune, yet its absence echoes through every fiber, a silent sentinel indispensable to the symphony. To reclaim this vital essence through nature's own decree, embark at the earth's verdant vaults. Those shadowed canopies of leafy kin, spinach's supple embrace, kale's resilient curl, avocado swelling with creamy depth, almonds and walnuts etched like ancient runes of resilience, pumpkin seeds scattering their quiet wealth, and even dark chocolate's bittersweet veil, savored in measured reverence. Quaff from springs laced with the soil's ancient legacy, waters infused with minerals murmur, not the barren clarity of stripped distillates that leave the body parched for what it craves. Above all, prune the thieves that pilfer this precious reserve, the relentless cascade of caffeine's grip, the languid pull of spirits, the ceaseless undercurrent of fret that gnaws without cease, and the siren call of processed phantoms that offer sustenance in name alone. Even the sanctuary of slumber serves as magnesium's sacred right. In its profound embrace, the tempests of tension ebb, hormones of havoc recede, and this mineral undertakes its tender toil, mending in the hush, weaving wholeness while the world wheels on. Yet, in the grip of perpetual psychic storm, your form devours its own stores, a flame feeding on its fuel until the embers fade to ash. Magnesium imparts a lesson etched in the soul's quiet script. Fortitude and yielding are entwined companions, inseparable in their dance. One cannot flourish in isolation. To summon might without its counterpart of melt is to court isolation's echo. As you begin to tender what your essence truly yearns for, a subtle tide turns. A fluidity seeps back, not confined to the taut lines of limb and tendon, but suffusing the vast expanse of your being. Your motion soften into elegance, no longer a battle against the body's betrayal, but a harmonious glide. Inhalations deepen, drawing the world's breath into your core with unhurried intent. Repose envelopes you wholly, a blanket woven from within. You awaken to the revelation that thriving demands no fiercer forge. It beckons a reclamation of cadence, the gentle pulse that once set your stars in orbit. In its unobtrusive wisdom, magnesium echoes the eternal call to equipoise, unveiling that tension unyielded breeds only the shadow collapse, and vigor unmoored from tranquility hardens into strain. Thus, when your form stiffens like a bowstring drawn too taut, when thoughts whirl in ceaseless eddies, pause and recall. The mightiest elixir oft resides not in lavish layers added atop, but in the hushed reclamation of what has slipped away unseen, a restoration as profound as the dawn's first light piercing the veil. When visions of muscle arise in the mind's eye, they conjure visions of limb and locomotion, arms forged like anchors, legs as pillars of pursuit, the raw poetry of motion unbound. Yet the deeper verity unfolds in an unexpected cradle. Your sinews take root not in the forge of effort alone, but in the shadowed sanctum of your core, the gut's enigmatic garden. This may murmur like a riddle from distant lore, but heed it true. Every mode of your architecture arises not from the mere passage of provision across the threshold, but from its profound communion, its absorption into the alchemical weave. You might orchestrate the grandest banquet the world could bestow, a symphony of earth's finest harvest. Yet should your inner gateway falter in its sacred duty, unraveling and claiming the gifts bestowed, your fibrous fortresses languish in famine, even as the hollow of hunger remains sated with illusion. The bloom of your gut decrees the destiny of your dominion entire. It stands as a luminous portal through which existence itself cascades, a threshold alive with possibility. Within its labyrinthine folds dwell legions beyond numbering, trillions of unseen kin, bacteria and boundless clans, viral voyagers, fungal fellowship, collectively christened the microbiome, a congress of co-architects in your unfolding tale. Far from interlopers or invaders, they embody alliance, fellow forgers of fortune. They unravel the enigmas of her past, birth beacons of vital radiance, temper the garrisons of your defenses, and even tint the palette of your inner weather, moods rising and falling like tides under their subtle sway. Your gut transcends the crude conduit imagined, a mere channel ferrying freight from ingress to egress. Nay, it pulses as a verdant dominion, a teeming jungle of infinitesimal lives entwined in eternal exchange. When this realm revels in equilibrium, your whole essence echoes its exaltation. When discord descends, inflammations insidious creep or imbalances bitter tilt. The repercussions radiate like stones cast into still waters, sinews soften into surrender, perceptions dull to twilight haze, vitality seeps away like mist before the morn. Sarcopenia's shadow, that creeping dissolution of muscular might with time's passage, wears off the mask of idleness or intake's insufficiency. But peel back the veneer and behold the true progenitor, a pyre of unrest, kindled deep in the gut's green heart. When your microbial council fractures, rogue emissaries among them, those shadowed strains, erode the bulwarks of your inner walls, forging fissures fine as whispers. Through these veiled breaches, venomous visitors slip into the crimson currents, igniting your sentinels into perpetual vigilance. This affliction, whispered as leaky gut in the annals of healing, unleashes a cascade of caustic couriers, inflammatory missives that assail your tissues in silence, unseen saboteurs at work. Across the slow unfold of seasons, these harbingers of havoc infiltrate your fibrous realms, unraveling strands swifter than the loom of renewal can reweave them. The onset whispers rather than roars. You sense in the dull throb of hinges long faithful, the insidious swell within, the languid drag of mending after trifling trials, the sudden shroud of lassitude after labor's light as leaf fall. Countless voyagers across my threshold with pleas etched in weariness. Healer, my harvest honors the earth, my form faithful to motion's call, yet prowess persists in flight. Delve deeper into the hidden currents, and the culprits unveil, the bowels beleaguered burdens, stagnance that clings like morning dew, gaseous gales unbidden, bloating's burdensome veil, or the scorch of reflux rising like a rogue dawn, emblems all of a gateway gasping under its load. Yet mark this miracle. Once we embark on the mending of that inner orchard, vitality vaults forth anew, slumber sweetens into sanctuary, repose deepens its roots, and the sinews stir once more, answering the call with renewed resonance. Astonishing, the frame's fervent fidelity, how swiftly it summons wholeness when its cradle finds harmony once again. Tending this veiled verdancy, then, the inaugural decree lies in denying tribute to the tempests. Withhold the saccharine snares that lure the lowly, The milled husks of flowers stripped of shadows, the rancid ruses of oils wrought in haste, the contrived charms of additives that masquerade as allies. These but banquet the brutes that breed blaze, fanning flames we never sought. The counterpoint calls for cultivation of the guardians, those benevolent brethren that shield, suture, and scaffold. They flourish on the loom of fiber. Nature's threaded gift, drawn from the humble bounty of stalk and root, orb and bloom, pod and sheaf unyielding. This weed becomes their wine, their sacred sustenance. In reciprocity, they distill elixirs of grace, short-chained sentinels that soothe the inner storm, granting your sinews a clarity to claim energy as kin, not conquest. It's a covenant carved in the quiet. Their nurture, your nobility. And woven into this web lies a luminous liaison twixt gut and gray matter, enshrined as the enteric echo, the gut-brain bridge. Have you ever felt the vice of vexation cinch your midriff, or the phantom's fret tangle your transit? There the axis awakens, a thread taut across the divide. When psyche pitches into tumult, the paunch follows in fretful echo. When the gut simmers in unrest broth, the spirit's light dims to dusk. Thus, salving the sanctum transcends fleshly forge. It's an odyssey of the heart, a whisper to the soul's own hearth. Tranquility tender to thought begets tranquility in the trove below. And from that cradle's calm, vigor flows upward to invigorate the frame. No labyrinthine lotions or arcane amulets required for the rite's dawn. Commence with the unadorned authenticity of earth's embrace, the living legacies of fermentation, yogurt's creamy covenant, kefir's effervescent kiss, sauerkraut's crisp chronicle, kimchi's spice saga, beside tubers threaded with tenacity and salves of virtue like olive's liquid gold or avocado's silken shield. Quaff the warden of waters, untainted by sweetness's siren, to scour the sacred passage clear. Gnaw with the leisure of lovers, each morsel of meditation. And breathe the ether's gift ere the first bite claims you. These elemental evocations dispatch a decree to your conduit's chorus. The hour of harvest has come. Welcome the wealth. Your gut mirrors a loam of legend, and from its furrows spring your sinews like steadfast saplings. Should that earth lie arid and acrid, laced with lurking poisons, no cascade of celestial light will coax verdure from its veins. But render it rife with resonance, teeming with life's latent pulse, and even the humblest seed unfurls into a colossus of grace and girth. The gut's guardianship stands not aloof from muscular majesty. It is its bedrock, the silent sovereign upon which all else ascends. Each gesture of grace toward your inner alchemy, each repast savored in serenity's shadow, each inhalation attuned before the feast unfolds, becomes a benediction broadcast to your being's breadth. When the gut intones its anthem of accord, the body bends to melody, and as the body harmonizes, the spirit's flame flickers forth, unoccluded and undimmed. We traverse the terrain of protein's prowess, minerals' mystic mend, the gut's green gospel. Yet now, we draw toward the pulse of this pilgrimage, the provision that murmurs its ministry, fortifies the frame, and rekindles equilibrium in manners veiled from the multitude's gaze. For epics, the chorus is urged pursuit of the arcane, distant delicacies dubbed super, fiscal fortresses of supplements, or enigmas unearthed from Earth's remote rims. But the cosmos conceals its counsel in the cloak of candor, the unassuming. The harvest I hail today arrives not in foil's flourish or from abyssal depths afar. It dwells in humility's hearth, within arm's easy reach, a masterpiece etched by creation's own hand. The egg, this orb of enigma cradles within its fragile filigree the blueprint for Genesis anew. Proteins pristine and poised, lipids lush and layered, veils of vitality and vitamins vibrant array. Fortifiers forged in minerals' quiet core, wards against waste and antioxidants aegis, and quickeners kindled in enzymatic embrace. All entwined in exquisite equilibrium. It harbors every architect of amino your form requires to erect and restore its fibrous citadel. It bestows choline's crown upon cognition's throne, selenium's steadfast shield against oxidative onslaught, and vitamin D's decree for skeletal sovereignty and sentinel surge. Enfolded in this is fat and flesh in nature's noble ratio, steadying saccharide sway and anchoring energy's eternal flame, as if the grand design whispered through its shell. Behold, wholeness oft wends its way in the whisper of the plain. In our ear is fervor for fringes, diets exalted in excess protein, starved of starch's subtle song, or drowned in supplement's ceaseless stream, we've wandered from the wellspring, forgetting that prime provision pulses oft in the primordial. The egg endures as emblem of entirety, unmarred by meddling, unprocessed by haste, unenhanced by hubris. When you draw it into your domain, you partake of paragon, a Genesis germ, a cosmos compacted into nourishment's nexus. I cherish the memory of a wanderer who crossed my path, her form frayed by fatigue, her spirit shadowed by surrender, her resolve eroded by relentless pursuit. She had traversed every trail of powder and paradigm, chasing the wind of whims that promised prowess. Yet her power plunged ever downward. Her dawn's decree? A bar of boastful fabrication, or grains cloaked in protein's pride, illusions of abundance. I bid her exchange this for twins of the shell, simmered soft, veiled in verdancy's grasp. Merely that? She murmured, doubt's echo in her tone. I met her gaze with a gentle arc. It suffices, and then some. 3 turns of the moon later, she reemerged radiant, as if the sun had kissed her anew. Vigor had vaulted within, hunger's hushed to harmony, exertions lightened to lyric. At times, the path to potency lies not in the clamor of more, but in the homecoming to what endures, what echoes the earth's eternal echo. The egg's allure transcends its trove of treasures. It lies in the intimacy of its invitation, the ease with which your form claims it as kin. Unlike the deluge of isolates that drown your dominion in disjointed drifts, the egg proffers its bounty in a proportion penned by Providence. The alabaster within yields its essence with yielding grace, while the yolk, long slandered as sin's own shade, cradles the lipids and light-bound life-givers that render that essence efficacious, a bridge from bounty to being. To exile the yolk is to evict the oracle's own verse. Verily, the vessel of its voyage matters manifold. To sear it in searing oil so fringes crisp like autumn's edge is to scatter its subtle sparks to the winds. But to cradle it in gentle boil or poached pure poetry preserves a pulse, vitality veiled intact. Savor with the soul's own leisure, gratitude as your guide. Entwine it with orbs oiled slices or leaf's living lace, and behold a banquet balanced to perfection. Insulin steadied in serene harbor, sinews stoked with steadfast fire, mind's meadows misted with nourishment's dew. As you commune with the egg, let its lore linger. It embodies emergence, the infinite coil within the infinitesimal. Beneath that parchment-thin veil throbs a potency to unfurl into a sovereign of sentience, a world woven from whisper. Therein pulses creation's cadence, renewal's relentless right. To ingest such integrity is to weave yourself into eternity's loom, a participant in the grand gyre of Genesis and return. Voyagers oft venture to query, laced with lingering doubt. Is it overly unadorned? Can such everyday ember ignite so vast a blaze? And I reply with the sage's own salve, candor crowns sophistication's throne. Vitality veers not toward the vortex of vexation. It voyages to verity, to fealty with the familiar that your form has long known and loved. The egg seeks no siren song in commerce, no scroll emblazoned with tenfold vows. It simply surrenders its sovereignty, a fauna wholeness, balanced as the breath of being. Profound piety permeates its presence. In every curve lies equilibrium's elegy, the sacred splice of sinew and surrender, nourishment's nuptial dance of yang and yin. In mindful merger with its mystery, you tether to timeless truth. You cease to cast provision as mere kindling for the forge and elevate it to sacrament, a hallowed harvest, life imbibed to cradle life anew. Cast aside the sardine summons, the powder's hollow pledge, the fleeting fetishes of fashion. At whiles, the deepest deliverance dawns in devotion to the soil's simplest sacraments. The egg enjoins us to entrust the artisan's art, to affirm that your form craves no labyrinth of layers. It yearns for lucidity, and in that lucidity's light, wholeness wells up, fortitude finds its forge, and the river resilience runs radiant once more. One verity yet vaults before us, a beacon for those who seek to etch endurance eternal and shield against time's tender theft. The creed of constancy. Vitality manifests not in the flare of a lone feast, a solitary surge of sweat, or a singular vow whispered in haste. It crystallizes in the hush of habit, etched with patient precision across the canvas of your days. Your form heeds not the thunder of toil, but the whisper of unwavering weave. A handful of humble rites, render with reverence, eclipses the ephemeral blaze that gutters with the week's weary turn. In discourses on Sarcopenia's subtle siege, the inexorable ebb of muscular mantle with years quiet accrual, we oft orbit proteins plea or motion's mandate alone. But a foundational force underlies all, cadence. The human husk hums to measure's melody. Every mote, every chamber, every courier command aligns to the ancient arabesque of luminescence and lull, stir and sustenance. When these motifs fracture into frenzy, Helsing falters to discord. To resurrect sinew splendor, one must also revive the rhythm, the pulse of provision, the poetry of pillow and path, attuned to the cosmos' ceaseless coil. Permit me to unfurl a fragment from the archive of encounters. There came to me an elder sage, a soul in his 70s softened by time's subtle sculpt, who confided a shrinking sense in his very silhouette. Savor soured to shadow, footfalls faltering like fading echoes, essence ebbing into ether. Surveying the mosaic of his morrows, I discern a drift without design, repast rogue and restless, dawn's decree dodge on some tides, twilight's troll claimed on others, slumber splinter like frost on fragile glass, motion's mere murmur scattered sand sequence. No symphony sounded, only the stark survival of the sundered. I tendered a tapestry simple as breath. Convene with Congress at cadence's call each dawn, surrender to slumber's summons of the selfsame hush each eve, greet the gold of sunrise with saunter stride, and crown your morning's muster with twins the shell soft simmer beside verdancy's vow. His lips curve in courteous curve, as if such elemental edict eclipsed import. Yet, as 3 moons waned to memory, he reappeared transfigured, a man reborn in the forge of fidelity. His countenance caught the light like dawn-kissed dew, his gait grounded in quiet command, his inner fire fanned to steadfast flame. What alchemy had altered the arc? Not filters poured nor physics pledged, but poise reclaimed, the rhythm restored. Your form flees the fray of flux. It flourishes in form's faithful frame. Vagary vexes the vital. To banquet at whim's wild hour, to linger in luminances lie beneath lamps that mock the moon, to shun the sun's sovereign summons is confound the chorus of couriers within. The sentinel of stress surges where serenity should reign. The guide to grottos grace gutters when ought to gleam. Mechanisms amend, including the sacred script of sinew's resurgence. Stumble into shadow, yet attune your hours to heaven's hymn, and the dormant divinities awaken. Salves stir from slumber, wholeness whispers forth. Herein lies a sermon for the spirit's ear. The frame reflects the fancy's fold. Turmoil's tide and tenure oft mirrors the mind's own maelstrom. We wander a realm rife with rupture, summons ceaseless as chimes, pressure perpetual as pulse, clamor's ceaseless call, and our forms drink deep of the disarray. But in forging discipline's deliberate design, you birth benediction's balm. Right redeems, not as reproof, but as revelation's right. It spells sanctuary to the sinews. Secure thou art. Succor I swear. In that haven's hush, healing hastens. Thus, to cradle your sinews, your spark, your sacred surge, tether your tomorrows to tempo's thread. Rise and yield to rest at rhythms resolute. Rouse the realm each day, be it saunter soft summons or squat summon in sanctuary's shade. Bestow banquets born of earth's unadorned, eggs emblem, green's gospel, tubers and sheaves in their soil-kissed splendor, at intervals inscribed in intent. And paramount, profit a province of pause. A cruel alchemizes not in arena's roar or altar's abundance, but in the velvet void that veils what follows. Constancy cultivates conviction's core. Each covenant kept, to cadence's call, to Congress conscious and kind, to calm compassionate claim, fortifies the faith woven within. That inner aegis anchors alteration's arc, rendering resurgence a river unrelenting. A form attuned to measure's murmur manifests as monolith unmarred. Sinews swell in silent sovereignty, alchemy aligns a azure calm. Psyche pacifies in profound peace. Herein resides Sarcopenia's silent slaying, not in spasm, snare, or supremacy's shadow, but in sojourn's soulful presence. The teaching, kin of the quest, unfolds thus. Thriving tolls no thunderous trek. It twirls as temples tango, thrust and thaw in tender twain. As solstice summons sunrise and surrender to shade without stutter. So let your litanies lift and linger in like litany. Let your musters, your motions, your moment of mercy transmute to Mrs. Divine, humble homages, dawn to dusk, to the enigma enshrined within.